Lesson H2, Environment and Social Movements. In this last lesson, we move beyond the functions and problems of our global institutions and the health of individuals to look at the health of the planet itself and how it is affected by our industrial economy and cultures. For all of our scientific knowledge and exploration of the solar system, we have yet to find life on any other planet. While globalization may be shrinking our planet by making it easier to move around, looking down from space also shrinks our planet by showing us how small it really is when you aren't standing on it. Seeing our cities lighting up the continents at night shows us just how much power we have to change it. All life on Earth depends on the interaction between various living things and the environment they live within. This is our global ecosystem. Plants turn sunlight, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen into sugar and oxygen, which animals eat while breathing in oxygen and out carbon dioxide until they are eaten or die. Their bodies are then eaten by bacteria and fungi, which turn then back into the raw materials that plants need. No part of this process can survive without the rest of the cycle. Human culture may have adapted biology in amazing ways, but we have the same biological needs as any other animal, and so we use our environment for food and energy and other resources. In the process, we affect our environment and other life with which we share it. We alter landscapes to grow food and build cities, whether terracing mountainsides over generations or slashing and burning rainforests every day. Ecology is the study of how living things interact within their environment, and human ecology mixes the natural and social sciences to recognize the interaction between human social structures and the ecosystems around them. Building industrial societies has meant extreme changes to the natural environment, replacing trees with buildings and grass with concrete. Along the way, we've powered our modern lives by replacing muscle with machines run on combustion or electricity. Most of our industrial energy today comes from burning oil and other fuels, all of which release huge amounts of carbon dioxide. This, along with other gases, including methane from our increasingly meat-heavy diet, goes into our atmosphere and traps the sun's heat from escaping the Earth. If you've ever stepped into a car that's been sitting in the sun, you'll understand the greenhouse effect. With less plants available to absorb that carbon dioxide, its concentration has been increasing steadily since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, speeding up even more since World War II as more countries have industrialized. While the Earth's atmosphere and temperature changes naturally over time, and the temperature varies from place to place and year to year, the rate of average change is far faster than Earth's natural processes. Increase in average temperatures doesn't mean everywhere will get hotter. It means changes in larger climate patterns, what we call climate change. This could mean heat and droughts in some places, blizzards and hurricanes in others. Temperature change does mean melting ice and rising sea levels, flooding huge areas of land where people now live and farm. Rising CO2 means chemical changes as well, changing our vast oceans that support life and crucial processes. If you're skeptical about climate issues, don't worry, you're not alone. About 59% of the American public has doubts, despite widespread agreement amongst the scientific community, with 97% of climate scientists' research showing the climate is changing due to human activities. To understand part of why there is such disparity between science and the general public, first ask yourself if you would encourage a child to smoke cigarettes or eat lead. You probably would not, because you know that both of these are bad for your health. In fact, you may have heard that there is a strong correlation between the brain damage caused by leaded gasoline and the crime wave of the 70s and 80s. But scientists knew about these health effects long before any laws were changed to manage the damage, and were challenged by other scientific research funded by the lead and tobacco industries. Science is based in the unbiased analysis of objective evidence. Anytime you have a controversy between scientific research, public opinion, and government policy, it's crucial to ask what evidence supports a conclusion and what conflicts of interest might bias social influence. Scientists make mistakes, but remember that publishing biased results is bad science, while doing so to increase profit is good business. It's also important to remember that climate change is not the only major problem for our environment. Deforestation adds to the greenhouse effect and desertification, but both of these also mean habitat destruction, which is one of the major causes of the mass extinction event caused by human activity, with species disappearing far faster than under normal conditions. Like a market economy, an ecosystem thrives with biodiversity, a variety of animals cooperating and competing for survival. Like a monopoly of government or oligopoly of private businesses, the relatively few plants and animals that humans use for their own benefit are susceptible to catastrophic problems and may not be able to perform crucial functions that keep the system healthy. Even for our own short-term health, many medicines come from nature. The cure for cancer may be hidden in an unknown species, but will that species go extinct before we find it? Our health also depends on having clean soil, air, and water, all of which are endangered by industrial pollution. Louisiana's high cancer rates, 8th in the United States, may be caused in part by oil refineries, both via the air and seafood, and its placement at the bottom of the Mississippi, which funnels pollutants from every state through which it runs. Access to clean water is one of the big challenges facing developing nations, and getting enough usable water at all may be one of the big conflicts facing our world in the near future, as water is diverted, overused, and privatized for the profit of multinational corporations. And water isn't the only resource at risk. Our culture values vast material wealth, and while our desires are unlimited, the earth is not. What happens when the rest of the world wants to use as much as the wealthy countries? How much energy you use and greenhouse gas you emit depend largely on where you live in the world. Newly industrialized middle-income nations have just caught up in terms of overall pollution. But what happens when each person wants the same lifestyle that we enjoy, especially if their populations continue to grow? We've seen that environmental damage per person is far greater in wealthy regions, but it is often the poorest regions that suffer the greatest consequences, leading to an imbalance in environmental justice. Knowing the health hazards of pollution, wealthy countries pass local regulations, but that often drives production to poorer regions where immediate survival is more important than long-term health and environmental effects. Even within this country, we often see hazardous waste and industries pushed into the poorest counties and neighborhoods. Those with wealth can buy imported food, water, and better land, but those without must struggle to survive or become environmental refugees, seeking more livable countries to shelter them. We're familiar with the recent Syrian refugee crisis of those fleeing the civil war and brutality, but war will, hopefully, come to an end. Environmental damage may take far longer to correct.